Hi, it's Mrs. Ferris from Wood Library. Thanks for joining me. We're just about to shine the spotlight on somebody really special. His name is Tedd Arnold, and he's the author and/or illustrator of over 100 books. And the best way for me to introduce you to him, well, is to read one of his books. Our first book is actually the very first book that Tedd Arnold had published. It's called No Jumping on the Bed. And he got the idea for it from his very own son, Walter. Walter was no doubt jumping on the bed, and Tedd was probably being like most parents, saying, "Don't do that." And if his son said, "Why?" well, his father might have said, "Because you'll break a hole in the ceiling, or your bed will break a hole in the floor, and you'll go down, down, down." Well, the more he probably thought about that, the more he thought, that would be a good story. So he wrote it. And our copy here at the library is actually autographed by Tedd Arnold. It says, "No jumping on the bed, read in bed instead." Now you can see that this story takes place in a city and in an apartment building. Well, there is floor upon floor upon floor in those tall buildings. And there's Walter jumping. In his bedroom near the top floor of a tall apartment building, Walter was getting ready for bed. Before turning out the light, his father said, "If I've told you once, I've told you 1,000,000 times, no jumping on the bed. One day it'll crash right through the floor. Now lie down and go to sleep." "Just one more time?" asked Walter, but instead he plopped down on his pillow and squeezed his eyes closed. "Good night," said his father. He turned off the light and pulled the door almost closed. The room was dark and quiet, except for a soft thump, thump, thump coming from the room above. "That's Delbert upstairs," thought Walter. He switched on his bedside lamp. If Delbert can jump on his bed, so can I. So Walter bounced higher and higher, and on his last jump, his hair brushed the ceiling. But when he came back down, his mattress creaked, the floor cracked, and the whole bed tipped sideways. And then down through the floor fell Walter, bed and all. Now it happened that Walter's bedroom was directly above Miss Hattie's dining room. She was more than a little surprised when a bed fell through the ceiling and Walter landed in her plate of spaghetti and meatballs. "I was not expecting company for supper," she mumbled with a mouthful of meatballs. "Mmm," said Walter. "Spaghetti is my all-time favorite." But before he could eat, his bed smashed through the table and kept right on crashing down through the floor. Down and down fell Walter, Miss Hattie, the place of spaghetti, the bed and all. Now, Miss Hattie's dining room was above Mr. Matty's TV room. Mr. Matty didn't even notice that a bed was falling through his ceiling until a meatball bounced off his head. Miss Hattie tumbled into his lap, and Walter splashed into his aquarium. "I've already had my bath tonight," said Walter. He wanted to stay and watch the monsters on TV, but his bed crunched through the floor, taking the TV with it. Down, down fell Walter, Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, the TV, the spaghetti, the bed, and all. Walter's Aunt Batty had just moved into the building. She was still unpacking when Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, and a dripping wet Walter tumbled through the ceiling right into a box containing her rare Patagonian stamp collection. When he burst through the bottom of the box, Walter was a sticky mess. "Oh, I see you've started collecting stamps," said Aunt Batty as she followed Walter through the new hole in the floor. Down, down fell Walter, Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, Aunt Batty, the stamp collection, the TV, the spaghetti, the bed, and all. Patty and Natty were working 3 days building their dream house with blocks. Now, afraid that Fatty Cat might knock something over, they carefully shooed her out for the night. And then the upstairs neighbors came through the ceiling. "Excuse us," said Walter, remembering his manners. "We won't be staying long." The words were barely past his lips when Walter's bed bashed through the floor and continued on its way. Oh, look at the building. Down, down fell Walter, Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, Aunt Batty, Patty, Natty, Fatty Cat, the stamps, the TV, the spaghetti, the bed, and all. Now, the last thing Mr. Hanratty ever expected to see was a bed coming through his studio ceiling, followed by nearly everyone in the building. "Why, if I'd known you wanted to see my paintings," he said, "I would have tidied up a bit." But they never once paused to admire Mr. Hanratty's colorful artwork. They were too busy splashing in his cans of paint. And then his floor caved in, and everyone followed Walter's bed down through the hole. Down, down fell Walter, Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, Aunt Batty, Patty and Natty, Mr. Hanratty, Fatty Cat, 17 cans of paint, the stamps, the TV, the spaghetti, the bed, and all. Maestro Ferlinghetti and his string quartet were astonished by the colorful crowd that fell through the ceiling. Now, the maestro loved an audience, even if they dropped in unannounced. But when Walter's bed smashed through the floor and paint splattered everywhere, oh, the maestro wished his audience would leave. And so they did, along with his string quartet. Maestro Ferlinghetti's practice room floor was also the basement ceiling. It was dark and quiet as midnight down there. Walter squeezed his eyes closed and tumbled through the darkness until he landed on something soft. He opened his eyes. Everything was in its place. His bedroom lights were out. The door was almost closed, and through it Walter could hear his mother and father talking quietly. "No more jumping on the bed for me," mumbled Walter as he lay back down to sleep. But suddenly, he heard a creak. The ceiling cracked, and down came Delbert, bed and all. Down, down fell Delbert. That is a fun one, and it's been over 25 years, I think, since this one was published. And Tedd Arnold has done a new edition of it with new illustrations that are a little bit more in keeping with his style now, because artist style does change over the years. So here's another edition of No Jumping on the Bed. And he followed that book up with one for his other son, William, and this one is called No More Water in the Tub. Can you guess what might happen in it? Tedd Arnold was born in Elmira, New York, and actually lives there still. He did move to Florida for a time period, but he's back in our neck of the woods, so to speak. He has written and illustrated over 50 books on his own, and he also illustrates books for other people. So we're going to go right to one of his very first ones, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. He once wrote some nonsense color poems, and one of them was about a girl named Wilma, who was green. And he thought about her, and he thought, Wilma could turn into a frog. And in the back of his mind, he had the idea that she would chase a fly around her school. And can you guess who that fly is going to become many years later? We'll get to that. But let's read about Green Wilma. And then we'll make a Green Wilma of our own. Can you see Wilma? See what she's looking at? And she thinks it looks yummy. I believe this is also published by Dial. One morning, Wilma woke up green and, much to her surprise, she sat up on her bed and croaked and started eating flies. She washed, she dressed, she combed her hair, she quickly made her bed. She hopped onto the breakfast table. "Pass the bugs," she said. "Green children should not go to school," she heard her mother fuss. But out the window Wilma jumped and rode off on the bus. Look at that, she's sitting right on the bus driver. In class, Green Wilma tried, but simply could not keep her seat. In gym, while playing dodgeball, Wilma could not be beat. In art, the kids thought being green was absolutely great. But teacher said the green must be from something that she ate. At story time, poor Wilma felt so hungry she could cry. And then she saw on teacher's nose a tasty little fly. You see what she did? She chased it all around the room and up and down the hall and through the lunchroom. That's the place that flies love best of all. The principal yelled, "Stop her! She should know we have a rule that children aren't allowed to munch on flies while they're at school." Then out the door Green Wilma hopped into the hills beyond. And finally she caught that fly up over Miller's Pond. Wilma landed in the water with a noisy splash. She met a very hungry fish and woke up in a flash. Then she recalled the words they teach to every little frog. When you dream, be careful that you don't fall off the log. That was a rhyming story because it came from a poem that he wrote. And wasn't Wilma fun? And that little fly right there is going to be our friend Fly Guy. Well, I'm going to get ready for us to do our first craft, which is to make Green Wilma. So I'm going to get my materials, my plate, my Google eyes, my strip of yellow scrap paper and red. I'm also going to get a marker and a glue stick from my stash here at the library. I bet you have those at home too. So I'll get set up and we'll make Green Wilma. So to make our Green Wilma, we're going to take our green plate. We're going to take some Google eyes. And paperclip to the Google eyes, you'll find that there's a little fly for her to eat. So the first thing you're going to want to do is put your Google eyes on. There's a glue dot on the back of each one, so you just peel it off with a piece of paper and stick it on your green plate. Just like that. Then take your marker and draw a wide frog mouth. You can see I put little cheeks on either side of it. You can do that if you want. Then I'm going to take my strip of yellow paper and I'm going to cut it into long strips. You should be able to get about 8 of them. Make them about as wide as your little fingernail. So about 1/4 of an inch wide, going the length of the paper. You can stop the video and cut those out. Now that I have them all cut, I'm going to turn those into Wilma's crazy curly hair. So I'm going to take a pencil and pick up one of the strands and just kind of wrap it around. Now you can curl it all the way around. Just wrap it and wrap it and wrap it. And pull on it a little bit like that to curl it. Or you can just put your pencil there and have Mom or Dad show you how if you pull the pencil along with your finger on one side of that piece of paper and the pencil on the other, it'll curl up. And you're going to want to do that with all 8 of your pieces. So curl and curl. And if you do it more, it'll curl more. Some people also use their fingers to do that. Just by using your fingernail, you can curl it. But you're going to want to get 8 curls. Now I have 8 curls to put on. And what I'm going to do is just use a glue stick and put a little glue around for each of the strands that I put on there. Starting a little bit, about even with her eyes. And stick one on. And a little bit next to it. And stick another one on. Keep going around until you have all 8 of the strands of hair curls on Wilma. You may want to hold them in place just for a minute until the glue sets. Maybe count to 5 when you pinch it together. And hope your thumb doesn't stay stuck to it. There's Wilma with her curls. Then you have a strip of red paper. And this is going to become 2 things. It's going to be a bow for her hair and her tongue. So we're going to cut the tongue first. And you're going to cut a strip that's just about the same width as the ones we did for the curls, but not quite so long. So just trim up, maybe about 4 or 5 inches, not the full length. We'll give her a nice long tongue. Yeah. I'm going to round it off just a little bit at the end because if you look at your tongue, it's not square at the end, it's rounded. But you can leave yours square if you want to. It doesn't really matter. So there's my tongue. Wilma's tongue, actually. And I'm going to curl that just the same way I did the other. Give it a little bit more of a curl. So it's curled just like that. And then I'm going to put some of the glue right at the very top and then position it so it's right below where her mouth line is. Like that. Now I'm going to even off that paper. I'm actually going to cut a strip that's about 1 inch wide, and I'll use the whole strip for this. Then I'm going to gently fold it and find where the center is. Just make a little bit of a crease like that. And then put some glue on one end and bring that into where that fold was. So you make a loop like that. And then put some glue on the other end. Bring that end in and just pinch it together until it holds. And then I'm going to cut a kind of an oval shape from the scrap that's left. And that's going to be the knot in the middle of my bow. And I think I'm going to outline that with the marker, just so it shows up. See how that stands out a little bit more when it's outlined. And then I'm just going to glue that right over where my two pieces of the ends come together. So my bow looks like that. And sometimes people like to draw little lines coming out from that knot in the middle, because when you do tie a bow with a knot, it squinches it a little bit. So I'm going to do mine just like that. And then I'm going to glue this right into her hair. So put some glue on the back of it. And find a spot in all those curls. And add the bow. And again, hold it in place, maybe for a count of 5, so that it stays right there. And then we have one last thing we're going to add to Wilma. There she is. And what does she need? Well, she needs her fly. So attached to your Google Eyes was a little fly. I'm just going to cut a circle around the outside of it. And then I'm going to glue the fly right on the tip of her tongue. Again, hold it in place, but don't let your fingers stick on the tongue. And there she is, all ready for breakfast or lunch or dinner. Tedd Arnold also did another book about Green Wilma. There may be more, but this is the only other one I was sure of, and this is called Green Wilma, Frog in Space. You might want to check it out. I'm going to clean up here and then we're going to get ready for a story. Might be one of your favorites about this guy, Fly Guy. Let's meet Tedd Arnold's most popular and probably his favorite character. His name is Fly Guy. He appears in 38 books that Tedd Arnold has written, and this is the very first one. It's called Hi, Fly Guy. It's a chapter book, and it's also intended for young readers, children who are just learning to read on their own because the vocabulary is simple and fun. Chapter 1. A fly went flying. He was looking for something to eat, something tasty, something slimy. A boy went walking. He was looking for something to catch, something smart, something for the amazing pet show. And they met. Boink! The boy caught the fly in a jar. A pet, he said. The fly was mad. He wanted to be free. He stomped his foot and said, "Bzzz." The boy was surprised. He said, "You know my name. You are the smartest pet in the whole world." Chapter 2. Buzz took the fly home. "This is my pet," Buzz said to Mom and Dad. "He's smart. He can say my name. Listen." Buzz opened the jar. The fly flew out. "Flies can't be pets," said Dad. "They are pests." He got the fly swatter and the fly cried, "Buzz!" And Buzz came to the rescue. "You're right," said Dad. "This fly is smart." "He needs a name," said Mom. Buzz thought for a minute. "Fly Guy," said Buzz. And Fly Guy said, "Bzzz." It was time for lunch. Buzz gave Fly Guy something to eat. Hot dog. And Fly Guy was happy. Chapter 3. The Amazing Pet Show. Buzz took Fly Guy to the Amazing Pet Show. The judges laughed. "Flies can't be pets," they said. "Flies are pests." Buzz was sad. He opened the jar. "Shoo, Fly Guy," he said. "Flies can't be pets." But Fly Guy liked Buzz, and he had an idea. He did some fancy flying. And the judges were amazed. "The fly can do tricks," they said. "But flies can't be pets." Then Fly Guy said, "Buzz." The judges were more amazed. "The fly knows the boy's name," they said. "But flies can't be pets." Then Fly Guy flew high, high, high into the sky. And then he dived down into the jar. "The fly knows his jar," the judges said. "This fly is a pet." And they let Fly Guy in the show. He even won an award. He didn't get the tallest pet, or the cutest pet, or the pet with the most legs. He didn't get the heaviest pet, but he did get the smartest pet. And so began a beautiful friendship. So I said there are lots of other books about Fly Guy, so come and see them for yourself. And our next craft, we're going to be making a Fly Guy. So let me once again get set up here. You're going to need a toilet paper tube. You're going to need some pipe cleaners, 3 of them. You're going to need a scrap of white paper to make his eyes. In our bag, I've included a piece of acetate, plastic film. If you don't have that at home, you could probably use maybe a freezer bag, might hold up, or you could just use more paper, that's fine. You're also going to need some scissors, a black marker, and a red marker. You're going to need your glue stick, and you're going to need your mom and dad to help you a little bit to poke some holes in the side of your toilet paper tube to put his legs and arms through. Now, I used my scissors to poke a hole. You could also use a pencil to poke the holes. You're going to need 4 of them. You could also use a screw or something like a screwdriver to poke the holes. So let me get set up. You find those materials and we'll be back here to make our own fly guy. So the first thing you're going to want to do for your fly guy is to poke those holes. You might want to take your pencil so that you can mark where you're going to need them. The holes for his legs are going to be down towards the bottom of the tube. The one I had, there's one down there and one directly across from it on the other side. So you may want to mark those about maybe 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom. If you have a hole punch, you could actually punch that hole, but it's kind of harder to do it for the one that's up further. So I'll just put that on in black so you can see where I'm talking about. So that's where my hole is going to be, and then I've got one on the other side. And then directly above that, maybe about 1.5 inches, I'm going to draw another dot on each side, and that's where the arms are going to go. You want to try and get those to be about the same level going across and directly above the other holes. But if not, it's not that important. So there's that on one side, and then on the other. And then I'm going to want to poke my holes through. So as I said, you can use any one of those tools that you might have. I think I'm going to try the screw this time. And I might suggest that Mom or Dad could do this for you. But you could use a screw or a nail, but be careful because it does have a very pointy, sharp end. So there's one hole that's punched. And it's a little harder to do when you have to go through more than one layer. So that's why I'm suggesting maybe Mom or Dad could help you with that. May have to unscrew it to get it out. Okay, so now I have those 2 holes done. Now I'm going to do the ones on the other side. Could hear that one going through, couldn't you? This one is through 2 layers, so it's a little harder. Okay, so when you've got your holes all poked, you can put that tool away, whatever kind of tool you used. And then you're going to hold it so that the holes for the legs are down at the bottom, the holes for the arms are up above, and in between them you're going to draw Fly Guy's mouth. He has a wide mouth. I think Tedd Arnold likes wide mouths because Fly Guy has a wide mouth, and so did Green Wilma. And then I'm also going to stick his tongue hanging out, just for fun. So that's what I've drawn on there. And then I'm going to use my red marker to color in the tongue. I have to say I don't know if flies have tongues, and if they do, I don't know that they're red, but that's what I'm going to do. So there's his. Then I'm going to take my white piece of cardstock and I'm going to draw his eyes. So his eyes are going to be about 2-inch circles. You can trace something if you want to make them. You're going to want it bigger than your tube, but not much bigger. So you can trace those on there or draw them on there. You could use a glass to draw around the outside to get 2 circles. I'm just going to actually freehand mine because I don't have anything here to trace. There's one. And they don't have to be perfectly round. If you look at Tedd Arnold's illustrations, they're kind of rough and fun. You see his eyes aren't perfectly round. But I'm going to try to draw 2 that are about the same size. So I've got 2. And then I'm going to draw an eyeball in each one, just a dark circle. Like that. And then grab your scissors and cut them out. When you have your 2 eyes cut out, you can glue them onto your tube. Now remember, you're going to want to be sure that you're gluing them right above the mouth that you made. And I like them to overlap a little bit because that's also how Tedd Arnold did them, and I think that gives them some personality when they're not spaced apart, but they're kind of overlapping like that. So just do the edge of one. Them together like that. Guess I need a little more glue on there. And I didn't follow my rule about holding them together for a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It gives that glue just enough time to set. And then you're going to put some glue right in the middle of the back. Stick them on. And again, you're going to want to hold it until the glue sets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can set it aside because we still have one more part of him to do. You're done with your glue stick. Put that away. But you're not done with your marker. The last thing that you would have had for this craft is the piece of acetate. This is actually a transparency that somebody could use with an overhead projector, but it works just great for this project. What we're going to do is we're going to make Fly Guy's wings. So you're going to want to draw 2 kind of longish circles on each side to be the wings. And I think one of the easiest things that you can use to draw your wings is your hand. If you draw around the outside of your hand like that, I think it will be perfect for the wings. Now, before you start drawing, feel your piece of acetate. One side is very shiny. One side is what we call matte. It almost has like a texture to it. That's the side we're going to want to draw on because it's a little bit more porous and the marker will dry without smearing. So I'm going to put mine down. It's going to look like I'm drawing right on the table, but I'm not. And I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to I'm going to draw around 3 of my fingers because I think that would be about the right size. And then I'm going to do it around the other side too, because he has wings on both sides. I'm going to connect them like that. Oops, I'll leave it down. Actually, if I get my piece of white paper that I have an extra one of, an extra bit of, you can probably see it there. And then I'm just going to draw some lines in it. And make sure that it's dry, because I actually smeared mine a little bit. You can see I smeared it. But once that's dry, then cut around the outside of it with your scissors. I'm cutting a little outside the line. Because I want that black edge to show. I like the acetate because it's firm and a little bit stiff, and it will hold up. The plastic bag may droop a little bit if you use that, but it might be an okay substitute. I'm just going to toss that out because I don't need it. But there are my wings. So I'm going to take my fly guy, and I'm going to tape the wings on his back. You could also staple them on, but I didn't bring a stapler with me today, so I'm just going to get a nice long piece of tape that will go over both sides of the, so I have tape extending, and then I can just put it right on his back, right in the middle. You may want it down to be down just a little bit. I put mine up a little high, so I think I'm going to reposition it. You want it a little bit below his eyes because you want it to be able to be seen. So there, he's taped on right just like that, so you can see it. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your pipe cleaners. You have 3 of them. Remember I said one is going to be for his legs, one will be for his arms, and one will be for his antenna. So you're going to take one and fold it in half. I shouldn't be wearing black when I should do this. Fold it in black so it looks like a V. You're going to want to bend back the tip a little bit. Fold it in on itself so it's like that on both sides. Like that. Then take a piece of tape and tape it. I like to tape it inside of my tube. So put the tape on it and press it inside. Again, you could staple these on. I just realized I didn't give him a nose. And in case you hadn't noticed, Fly Guy has a nose, so I'm going to get my marker and just draw on a nose for him. Like that. Then take one of your other pipe cleaners and thread it through from one side to the other. Can you see it's coming out the other side? Have it be about the same on both sides. Take your third pipe cleaner, do the same with the bottom to make the legs. Okay, so you've got the arms and the legs. And then what you should do is just bend them to look like. So he's got to have knees and feet, right? So give him knees on both sides and feet, like that. And then his arms, you're going to fold. I want to make it so that he has hand. So I'm going to fold it back about 3/4 of an inch and then out again. And there's Fly Guy. Buzz. All right, we're going to have one more story. So once again, I will clean up here and get us ready for it. If you hadn't already discovered it, Tedd Arnold likes to do silly stories. And we're going to finish up with one that is pretty silly, I think. But before we get started, I want you to ask yourself, you're an ordinary kid, right? But have you ever noticed your belly button? Your toes? Your teeth? They're all parts of your body. And as we read this book, I would like you to touch the part of the body that's mentioned here. And let's see if yours are all behaving the way they should. I just don't know what's going on or why it has to be, but every day it's something worse. What's happening to me? I think it was 3 days ago I first became aware that in my comb were caught a couple of pieces of my hair. Do you know what that means? Touch your hair. Yeah. I stared at them, amazed and more than just a bit appalled, to think that I was only 5 and starting to go bald. Then later on, I don't recall exactly when it was, I lifted up my shirt and found this tiny bit of fuzz. Oh, I stared at it amazed and wondered what this was all about. And then I understood. It was my stuffing coming out. Can you touch your belly button? That's where he found the fuzz. Well, the next day when I was outside playing with the water hose, I saw that little bits of skin were peeling off my toes. Can you touch your toes? I stared at them, amazed, and then I gave a little groan to think that pretty soon I might be peeled down to the bone. Then yesterday, before my bath, as I took off my clothes, a chunk of something gray and wet fell right out of my nose. I stared at it, amazed, and thought, I should be feeling pain. Well, wouldn't you if you just lost a little piece of brain? Did he really lose a brain? No. So now today I'm sitting here enjoying Dr. Seuss, and suddenly I realize a tooth is coming loose. Can you touch your tooth? Do you have any loose teeth? I bet not yet. I wiggled it, amazed, dismayed, too horrified to speak. Without my teeth, how can I eat? Already, I feel weak. Now I'm really worried. I'm as scared as I can be, because finally what's happening is very clear to me. The glue that holds our parts together isn't holding me. And now I'm thinking to myself, what's next in line to go? It might be my ears, might be my eyeballs. How's a kid to know? One day I might be playing ball and have my arm fall off. Or maybe I could lose my head if suddenly I cough. Quite soon I'll be in pieces, a pile without a shape. Thank goodness Dad keeps lots and lots and lots of masking tape. What? You forgot to tell me my teeth fall out? And when they do, some brand new teeth will soon begin to sprout? My hair? My skin? And everything? There's nothing I should fear? So all of me is normal? Whew, that's really good to hear. Then tell me, what's this yellow stuff I got out of my ear? And if you liked Parts, well, he wrote a sequel called More Parts. And he wrote another sequel called Even More Parts, all about the strange, silly things we say about our bodies. So those are the fun things the week found to do with, well, books by Tedd Arnold. We had Green Wilma. We made a craft for Fly Guy. We learned why we shouldn't jump on the bed, and not to worry when some of your body parts start falling off or changing or whatever, because it's all normal and it's all fun. Thanks for joining me for this month's Spotlight, and we'll be back next month to shine the spotlight on somebody else.